The night was colder than usual, and the city seemed quieter than it had ever been. Streetlights cast long golden shadows across the pavement, and every sound echoed like a secret waiting to be heard. I had been sitting by the cafe window for almost half an hour, waiting for her. My heart raced with every ring of the door, every laugh that drifted inside, but none of them were her. And then, finally, she appeared. She walked in with that familiar grace that always seemed unintentional, as if the world bent itself around her without her noticing. Her hair fell loose over her shoulders, catching the dim light, and her eyes searched the room until they found mine. For a moment, everything else disappeared. I forgot about the noise, the cold, and even the restless beating in my chest. All I saw was her smile, the smile that had always been mine, even when she pretended it wasn't. We hadn't been just friends, not really. There were too many almosts between us. Almost kisses, almost confessions, almost nights where one of us wanted to stay instead of leaving. But she was with someone else back then, caught in a love that looked beautiful from the outside, but felt empty on the inside. And I had been the one silently holding her up through it all, never daring to ask for more. Tonight felt different. She sat down across from me, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled off her jacket. "Thanks for coming," she whispered, her voice softer than usual, her guard lowered in a way I rarely saw. "Always," I said, because it was the only truth I had ever known. We talked about nothing and everything, the weather, her job, the way she had been feeling lately. But beneath it all was something unspoken, heavy yet delicate, waiting to be named. I noticed the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention, the way her smile lingered longer, the way her fingers tapped nervously against her coffee cup as if they were searching for mine. And then she sighed. A deep, shaky breath that carried more meaning than words could ever hold. "I ended things with her," she said, her eyes not leaving mine. I froze. My heart stumbled, and the room seemed to tilt just slightly. I wanted to ask why, but before I could, she leaned forward, her voice trembling but sure. "Because she wasn't you." The cafe suddenly felt too small, too loud, too filled with the sound of my heartbeat. I had imagined this moment countless times, but nothing could prepare me for the way it felt in reality. The way her words wrapped around me like warmth I had been starving for. And in that moment, I knew the night had only just begun, and it was the night she would finally choose me. The silence that followed her confession wasn't empty, it was electric. My hands trembled slightly on the table, my throat tight with words I couldn't yet form. I had dreamed of hearing her say those things, of knowing she wanted me, but when the moment arrived, it felt unreal, almost fragile, as though the wrong response could break it apart. Her eyes stayed fixed on mine, unblinking, as if daring me to doubt her. "I should have told you sooner," she continued, her voice quivering. But I was scared. Scared of losing her, scared of losing myself, and scared of losing you. "You could never lose me," I whispered, surprising even myself with the steadiness in my tone. The truth in my words filled me with courage I didn't know I had. Her lips curved into a half smile, bittersweet and beautiful. That's what I kept telling myself. But every time I was with her, I kept thinking about you. Every laugh, every fight, every quiet night, it was your face that came back to me. Your voice that calmed me. It's always been you. The weight of her confession settled into me, filling every hollow space I had carried for years. I wanted to reach across the table and hold her, but instead, I asked softly, "So what now?" She hesitated, biting her lip the way she always did when she was nervous. "Now, I want to stop pretending. I want to stop running from what's been here all along." She leaned forward, so close that I could feel the warmth of her breath against my skin. Her fingers grazed the edge of my hand on the table, hesitant at first, then firmer, until her palm rested against mine. The contact was so simple, yet it sent a shiver racing through my body. Her touch lingered, her thumb brushing gently across my skin as though she were memorizing the feel of me. "If you'll have me," she whispered, her voice breaking just slightly, "I want to choose you. Not just tonight. Always." I couldn't breathe. The world around us blurred into insignificance, every sound muffled, every sight fading except for her face, soft, open, vulnerable. My heart answered before my lips could. I turned my hand to clasp hers, holding it tightly, afraid she might slip away again if I let go. "You've already chosen me," I said, my voice low but steady. "I've just been waiting for you to say it." For the first time in a long time, I saw her truly smile, not the polite one she used for others, not the guarded one she wore in public, but the smile that belonged only to me. It was radiant, full of relief, love, and something deeper that had been hidden for far too long. And in that quiet cafe, with her hand in mine, I realized that this wasn't just a moment. This was the beginning of everything we had both been too afraid to want. We left the cafe together, hand in hand, stepping into the cool night air. The city hummed softly around us, distant cars, faint laughter from somewhere down the street, but between us, there was only silence, thick with everything we hadn't said and everything we finally could. She tightened her grip on my hand as if afraid I might slip away. I glanced at her, and the glow of the streetlights traced the delicate lines of her face. She looked lighter somehow, as though she had finally set down a weight she had carried for far too long. "Where do you want to go?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, then looked at me with an intensity that made my heart race. "Anywhere, as long as it's with you." We walked aimlessly at first, letting the rhythm of our steps guide us. My mind swirled with memories, the countless times we had walked like this before, side by side, but separated by unspoken walls. Tonight, though, those walls were gone. Every step felt like a promise, every glance like a confession. Eventually, we reached the small park near my apartment. It was late enough that the benches were empty, the swings swaying gently in the breeze. She pulled me toward one of the benches, and we sat, our shoulders brushing, our hands still entwined. For a while, we didn't speak. We just sat there, listening to the night, feeling the warmth of each other's presence. I could sense her heart beating as quickly as mine, even though neither of us dared to mention it. Finally, she broke the silence. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" I nodded. "You were upset. We sat right here, and you cried into my shoulder." A small laugh escaped her lips, though her eyes softened with the memory. "And you held me like I wasn't broken, like I was allowed to fall apart." She turned toward me, her gaze steady. "I think that was the night I started falling for you. I just didn't want to admit it." Her words hit me like a wave, leaving me breathless. I had held on to that same memory for years, never daring to believe it had meant as much to her as it had to me. "I wanted to kiss you that night," I confessed, my voice barely audible. She smiled, her eyes glistening in the dim light. "So did I." The space between us suddenly felt unbearably small, charged with years of longing. She leaned in first, her lips hesitating a fraction of an inch from mine, giving me the choice, giving me the chance to step away if I wasn't ready. But I was ready. I had been ready for years. I closed the gap, and when our lips met, it felt like coming home. Soft at first, tentative, as if we were both afraid the dream might shatter. But as her hands cupped my face and my arms wrapped around her, the kiss deepened, carrying with it every unsaid word, every stolen glance, every quiet ache we had buried. In that moment, the world didn't exist. There was only her, only us, and the undeniable truth that this was where we were meant to be. When our lips finally parted, we stayed close, foreheads pressed together, breathing in the same rhythm. The kiss had been everything, gentle, fierce, and overwhelming all at once. My hands trembled as they rested against her, but I didn't pull away. Neither did she. Her fingers slid down my arms until they found my hands again, holding them tightly. "I should have done that a long time ago," she whispered, her voice low and unsteady. I smiled softly. "So should I." We both laughed quietly, the sound breaking the tension but only deepening the intimacy between us. The night seemed to lean in closer, as if the stars themselves were watching. The cool breeze brushed against my skin, but with her beside me, I felt nothing but warmth. She looked at me with a rawness I'd never seen before, her guard gone completely. "You've always been the one," she said, her voice almost breaking. "Even when I was trying to love someone else, it was always you. I think." I was just too scared to believe it. Her honesty shook something inside me. For so long, I had been the quiet witness to her life, her laughter, her heartbreak, her joy, her pain, always standing close, but never close enough. To hear her speak those words felt like being seen for the first time. I would have waited forever, I told her softly. But I'm glad I don't have to. Her smile wavered, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. She leaned into me, resting her head against my shoulder. I wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close, and for a while we just sat there in the stillness, the weight of years lifting between us. But even in the silence, the connection between us kept growing like a tide pulling us closer, unstoppable. I felt her shift slightly, her hand sliding over my chest, her breath warm against my neck. My heart stuttered, and I held my breath as she tilted her face toward mine again. This kiss was different. It wasn't tentative or cautious. It was urgent, filled with longing that had been buried too long. Her lips moved against mine with a hunger that left me dizzy, her hands weaving into my hair as if she couldn't bear to let me go. I pulled her closer, feeling her heartbeat racing in sync with mine. The park, the night, the entire world dissolved until there was only the two of us, two souls finally colliding after years of orbiting each other. When we finally broke apart, breathless and trembling, she whispered against my lips, "I don't want this night to end." I brushed a strand of hair from her face, my thumb lingering against her cheek. "Then it doesn't have to." Her eyes searched mine, wide and vulnerable, but also full of trust. "Can we go to your place?" The question hung in the air, carrying with it both innocence and desire. I nodded without hesitation, my chest tight with a mix of nervousness and anticipation. Taking her hand again, I stood, and together we walked toward my apartment, hearts pounding, knowing that tonight would change everything. The walk to my apartment felt endless, every step charged with anticipation. Neither of us spoke much, but our silence wasn't empty. It was thick with meaning, with unspoken promises. Her hand stayed locked with mine the entire way, as though letting go might undo everything we had finally found. When we reached my door, I hesitated for just a second, my keys trembling in my hand. She noticed and leaned in close, her voice a soft reassurance. "It's okay. I want this. I want you." Those words gave me the courage I needed. I unlocked the door and we stepped inside. The faint glow from the streetlights spilled into the room, casting soft shadows on the walls. I didn't bother turning on the main light. Everything about the dimness felt right, like the night itself wanted to cradle us. We stood there for a moment, facing each other. My heart thundered in my chest, louder than ever before. She took a step closer, her fingers reaching for mine again, pulling me into her orbit. Her eyes flickered with vulnerability, but there was no hesitation this time. "I've imagined this moment so many times," she admitted quietly, her breath brushing my lips. "But nothing compares to how it feels right now." I cupped her face gently, my thumbs grazing her cheeks. "Me too," I whispered, before leaning in to kiss her again. This kiss was softer, slower than the ones in the park. It was exploration, savoring, discovering, memorizing. Her hands slipped around my waist, pulling me against her, and I melted into the warmth of her embrace. Every touch carried years of suppressed desire, and every sigh against my lips spoke of relief, of finally letting go. We stumbled slightly as we moved further inside, laughing softly between kisses. My back brushed against the wall, and she pressed against me, her body fitting perfectly against mine. Her fingers threaded through my hair, tugging gently, sending shivers down my spine. Time blurred. Every second stretched into something infinite, every kiss a confession, every touch a declaration. I had never felt so alive, so completely consumed by another person. She pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, her forehead resting against mine. "This isn't just tonight for me," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I want you tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day after that." Tears pricked my eyes, but I smiled through them. "You already have me. You always have." Her lips found mine again, and this time, there was no holding back. We were both giving in fully, surrendering to the truth we had kept hidden for far too long. The night stretched before us, infinite and full of promise. And as we held each other in the quiet of my apartment, I knew with absolute certainty, this was the night she chose me, and I would spend the rest of my life choosing her right back. The air between us grew heavier, not with hesitation, but with a shared certainty. Every kiss, every touch carried more weight than words ever could. Her fingers trailed down my arm, leaving goosebumps in their wake, before slipping into mine again. She tugged gently, guiding me further into the room as though she belonged there, as though she always had. We stopped near the couch, and she turned to face me fully. The dim glow from outside painted her face in soft shadows, highlighting the vulnerability in her expression. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, betraying her nervousness. "Can I stay here tonight?" she asked, her voice trembling with both hope and fear. I reached up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear, letting my fingers linger against her cheek. "You don't even have to ask," I murmured. "You're already home." The relief in her eyes was immediate, her shoulders softening as if I had just lifted the final weight off her. She leaned in to kiss me again, deeper this time, her hands gripping my waist as if she couldn't get close enough. I melted into her, my body responding to the hunger in hers, and soon we were tangled in one another, unable to separate even for a breath. We sank onto the couch, laughter spilling between kisses when we nearly toppled over. She pressed me back gently, her lips never leaving mine, her hands steady but reverent, as though she was memorizing every curve, every reaction. I threaded my fingers through her hair, pulling her closer, needing her as much as she needed me. But even in the urgency, there was tenderness. Every caress was deliberate, every touch filled with meaning. She wasn't rushing, she was cherishing, and I felt it in every brush of her lips against my skin. It wasn't just passion, it was devotion. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting anymore. I wasn't standing in the background, loving her from afar. She was here, choosing me, giving herself to me completely, and I to her. She pulled back for a moment, her forehead resting against mine, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I've never felt this safe before," she whispered. My heart swelled, and I kissed her softly, slowly, like a promise. "That's because you're exactly where you're meant to be." Her lips curved into a small, trembling smile before she kissed me again, her hands holding me as though she would never let go. And I knew she wouldn't. The night stretched ahead, endless and filled with the kind of intimacy that comes not just from passion, but from years of love finally spoken. Every second was sacred, every heartbeat a reminder of how long we had waited for this moment. And as we lay there together, wrapped in each other's arms, I realized something with absolute certainty. This wasn't the end of a long wait. It was the beginning of a life we were finally ready to live. The night unfolded in waves, gentle laughter, whispered confessions, stolen kisses that grew into something deeper and more consuming. By the time exhaustion finally began to seep into our bodies, we were lying together on the couch, tangled in each other's arms. The quiet was different now. It wasn't heavy with unspoken words, nor fragile like before, it was peaceful. Her head rested against my chest, her hand splayed across my heart as though she wanted to feel every beat. My fingers traced lazy patterns along her back, committing the warmth of her body to memory. For a long while, neither of us spoke. The silence said enough. But then she tilted her head up, her eyes shimmering in the dim light. "Can I tell you something?" she asked softly. I brushed my thumb over her cheek. "Anything." She hesitated, biting her lip the way she always did when she was vulnerable. I used to lie awake at night, wondering if I was making the right choices. I told myself I was happy that I loved her. But deep down, I knew something was missing. It was you. It was always you. My chest tightened at her words. I kissed her forehead, lingering there, my own eyes stinging with unshed tears. "I've loved you quietly for so long," I admitted. "Even when it hurt. Even when I thought you'd never feel the same. And now I don't have to hide it anymore." Her smile trembled, and she pressed her lips gently to mine, a kiss filled not with urgency but with truth. When she pulled back, Her voice broke into a whisper. "Promise me this isn't just a dream." I held her face between my hands, making sure she saw the certainty in my eyes. "It's not a dream. It's real. I'm real. We're real. And I'm not going anywhere." She exhaled shakily, her relief washing over me like a wave. She nestled back into my chest, curling closer as if trying to merge into me, to erase the space that had ever existed between us. Eventually, her breathing steadied, soft and rhythmic, and I realized she had fallen asleep in my arms. I stayed awake longer, holding her, memorizing the weight of her against me, the sound of her breathing, the way her hand instinctively clung to mine even in sleep. For years, I had watched her from the sidelines, silently yearning, silently hoping. And now she was here, not as a fantasy, not as a fleeting almost, but as mine. The night outside stretched on, but I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I felt whole. And as I kissed the top of her head, whispering into the quiet, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. She had chosen me, and I would spend the rest of my life proving she had made the right choice. Morning arrived softly, the pale light of dawn slipping through the curtains and washing the room in a golden glow. I stirred awake slowly, my body warm and heavy, but what grounded me wasn't the light, it was her. She was still there, curled against me, her arm draped across my waist, her breath gentle and steady against my skin. For a moment, I simply watched her. Her hair spilled across the pillow, her face peaceful in sleep. She looked so different like this, unguarded, free, almost childlike in her serenity. My heart ached with tenderness, overwhelmed by the quiet truth of what we had shared. She shifted slightly, her eyelids fluttering open. When her eyes found mine, a sleepy smile curved her lips. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice husky and soft. "Good morning," I whispered back, brushing my hand through her hair. There was no awkwardness, no uncertainty. Only ease. Only love. She nestled closer, sighing in contentment. "I can't believe I finally get to wake up like this," she said softly. I kissed her temple, my words firm and certain. "Get used to it. This is only the beginning." Her eyes softened, tears glistening as she whispered, "I was so afraid you'd never forgive me for taking so long to see what was right in front of me." I cupped her face gently, tilting her chin so she had to meet my gaze. "There's nothing to forgive. You're here now. That's all that matters." She kissed me then, slow, deliberate, full of promises for the future. It wasn't the desperate kiss of the night before, but something deeper, steadier, more certain. When we parted, she rested her forehead against mine, her breath warm as she whispered, "I choose you. Every day, I'll choose you." The words sank into me like sunlight, filling every space that had once felt empty. I smiled through the tears that pricked my eyes. "And I'll keep choosing you again and again, no matter what." We lay there for a while longer, wrapped in silence and warmth, before the world began to stir outside. But the noise, the responsibilities, the weight of reality felt far away. All that mattered was here, in this room, in her arms. As we finally rose and prepared to face the day, she reached for my hand again, lacing her fingers through mine with the same certainty she had shown all night. Her smile was radiant, her eyes clear, and for the first time, I saw her not as someone torn between choices, but as someone who had finally found her truth. Stepping outside together, I realized the night had changed everything. It wasn't just the night she chose me, it was the night we chose each other, fully and fearlessly. And as the sun rose higher, painting the world in light, I knew with unshakable certainty, this was not the end of our story. It was only the beginning.